Hello, and welcome to today's Up to Thrive Manage Your Mind Mindful Moment.
Welcome to Opt to Thrive, your go-to podcast for women's wellness in midlife, designed to educate, support, and inspire you to live your very best life. And now your host, Dr. Karina Sims.
My best friend from childhood and her husband are getting ready to come for a visit. So they're coming from the States to Australia very soon, and I am at the moment busily preparing for their arrival. I'm planning what we're going to do, where we're going to go, and most importantly, where they're going to sleep. I've been a little bit worried because we only have one bathroom in our place. And then I had an idea. We have another little house on our property that normally houses the pickers for the farm. We've just finished our harvest, so the house is empty. So I started to think, it'd be pretty cool. And I started to get pretty excited. I could give them their own space. Essentially, it's like a little guest house. Now, we took over the farm about 2 years ago, and I've never really taken a lot of interest in the little house, to be honest. The cleaning has pretty much been left to the tenants, so I suspected that it was going to take a bit of work to have it Airbnb ready for our special visitors. And when I mentioned it to my husband, he wasn't keen with the idea, and he didn't think that it was going to be good enough to house our special guests who aren't here to get dirty and work like the pickers are. So I told him I'd go and have a look and decide if it was possible, if I thought that I could get it up to standards, get it Airbnb ready. Now, I was a little worried that it might smell and it might be really grotty, but I was pleasantly surprised. The last couple that we had in there were quite tidy, and it was actually reasonably surface clean. Not to the Airbnb standard that I want from my guests, but I wasn't overwhelmed. So as I was having a look around, planning for how I could prepare it and make it a nice place to stay, I started to get really excited. My creative juices started to flow, and I could see the potential all around me. I didn't understand really what my husband was thinking. It made me think about how many times in my life I have moved into a rental property and made it a home. I would have lived in at least 16 rental properties in my time, just off the top of my head, and those are the ones that I was old enough to remember. Many of those were as a young wife of a military man, so we moved around a bit. Out of all of the houses that I've ever lived in, only one was a bit flash. The rest were varying degrees of livable, and some were truly bombs. I remember one was full of cockroaches. We didn't actually realize that until it was a little too late. Thankfully, though, we weren't there very long. What I've learned from all of these experiences is that when a place is squeaky clean and comfortable, and you decorate it with your things, the things you love, it really can transform any place into a home or just a cozy, comfortable place to stay. I remembered a girls' weekend I had a few years ago with my closest girlfriends. We stayed in an Airbnb on a farm in a beautiful wine region a few hours from here. It was an old place with old furnishings, but it was tidy and clean and comfortable. It was a time of year when the nights were a bit cold. And at night, we sat around and chatted in this cozy little room with mismatched old furniture. And there may or may not have been a fire in a fireplace. In my memory, there was a fire, but I don't recall actually starting the fire. So I don't know if it just fits well into that memory and it never really happened. But what I do know happened for sure is that the three of us sat together in that cozy little room, laughing and connecting and drinking port and eating honey biscuits that our host had freshly baked for us. And all three of us remember that weekend very fondly. When they hear this, they're going to have to let me know if we actually had a fire. But the point is, I don't think a place has to be new and fancy or flash to be absolutely perfect for the occasion. So I decided my husband was wrong. This could be a cracker of a guest house. We live just off a floodplain next to the river, so I was thinking kind of a river shack vibe with earthy colors, browns and greens and blues. And then I cranked up the tunes, rolled up my sleeves, and I got to work. I have scrubbed just about every inch of that place, the walls, floors, that greasy ventilation fan above the stove. I've opened up all the blinds, cleaned out all the spider webs. I've taken down and washed the screens and scrubbed the windows. And then I sat on the veranda looking out over the gum trees and the vineyards, and I just took it all in. I was thinking about how people say things are cathartic, and I thought, I'm pretty sure that's what it was that I was feeling. Cathartic is the release of strong emotions through an activity or an experience. Yep, that's pretty much what I was feeling. I remember doing this exercise as part of a life coaching course I did some years ago, where we had to clean out a junk drawer. So, of course, I went and had a look at the literature to see what studies had been done and what the evidence was. And that sent me right down one of those famous rabbit holes. It turns out that clutter isn't just annoying, it can actually affect your brain and your body. It can make you more anxious, mess up your sleep, and make it harder to focus. When your environment is a mess, your brain has to work harder just to tune it all out. A messy bedroom, in fact, can actually affect your sleep. Clutter is linked to weight gain. Apparently, it can affect food choices and productivity, making it more likely that we'll snack on junk food and veg out in front of the TV. Clutter can raise stress hormone levels and trigger a constant low grade fight or flight response. And if you've listened to the episode on stress we did, you would know that constant fight or flight response can affect immunity and increase the risk of chronic conditions like type 2 diabetes and heart disease. I found another study that concluded that doing housework like vacuuming, etc., can have beneficial effects on executive function. Now, executive function is like your brain's control center. It helps you stay organized, focused, and in control of your actions. It's what allows you to plan ahead, remember things, manage your time, resist distractions, and make good decisions. Basically, it's the set of mental skills you use every day to get stuff done. And so, if something has beneficial effects on executive function, it would imply it's good for our mental health. So there I was, singing along to old Randy Travis songs, preparing this little place with love. It was really rewarding. I felt a sense of accomplishment and joy and excitement to soon be sitting here with my best childhood friend, maybe having some port and honey biscuits, just enjoying our time together. And all the while, I didn't even realize I was doing lots of positive things for my mental health, all at the same time. I can't say, though, that I want to do it every weekend. Once was probably enough for a while, anyway.
I hope you've enjoyed this Manage Your Mind mindful moment. And if you have, and you can think of someone else who might enjoy it, please pass it on. And don't forget to rate and review the podcast to make it more visible to those who might get something out of it too. Have a great week, everyone. And until then, I hope you opt to thrive.
The Opt to Thrive podcast is designed for information purposes only and is not engaged in the giving of medical advice. The information provided on the podcast should not be used for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease. In no way should the information provided by Opt to Thrive be considered medical advice, and at all times the advice of a medical professional should supersede recommendations from Opt to Thrive. If you have or suspect you may have a health problem, you should consult your healthcare provider. The views expressed in this podcast are purely that of Dr. Sims and do not in any way reflect those of the institutions she contracts with medical services to.
Thank you for listening to Opt to Thrive. If you've enjoyed listening, please rate and share the podcast. You can visit our website at opttothrive.com and leave a comment for any subjects you would like to hear more about.